Hey, thanks for stopping by. It's David here with the Write Your First Novel Now podcast edition. And I'm really glad that you're tuning in today. I want to talk about expectations and what they mean for us as writers, whether we are aspiring to be a novelist or whether you may have already written and published a few novels yourself. I want to talk about expectations because this is something that's really important for grounding yourself as you enter the process of writing your first novel. I think, unfortunately, what many of us experience is we tend to fall in love with the lifestyle of the writer, the way we imagine it based on what we see on TV and in the movies. And quite often that's, I guess in real life too, if you're looking at some of the really successful writers. But we see writers doing their thing, going to all the right parties, thinking big thoughts and using big words and making notes of everything, and then just living that lifestyle of book signings and talk shows and all that kind of good fun stuff. But that's not realistic at all. In fact, most writers barely make a living at it, if at all, and often have to do other jobs just to pay the rent. So before you start down the path of writing your own novel, let's talk about what you can expect during your journey on that, and especially if you follow the method that I teach and coach others, because it's not the same. I mean, there's lots of how-to books out there, and you can pick one up and read through, and probably get started. But the way I do things is a little bit differently. And what I teach and coach above all else is preparing to write based on a really solid planning function. And that starts with generating story ideas and moving into characters and their motivations, looking at the plot points that you're going to have to think about, and then finally a detailed roadmap that you can follow. So essentially you plan out your entire story before you ever start writing. And that's counterintuitive to a way a lot of aspiring writers think. For example, many of us, before heading into this world of novel writing, thought that what a writer would do is sit down at the kitchen table or at their desk. They open up their laptop or their journal. They type chapter 1 at the top of the page, and ticka clacka clacka clacka, and then by the end of the weekend they have a fully edited manuscript that's ready to become a bestseller. It does not work that way, and anyone who's ever tried to write that way realizes that it's a recipe for disaster and failure. Too often, we haven't given enough thought to the story. We write ourselves into a corner, and we can't get out of it. Our energy lags, and then we quit. And then perhaps in a little while, we get another idea for a story and we start again, sit down at the kitchen table, and off we go. And it's got the same result. So this is not the way to write a story. It's not the way to get a novel done. The way to do it is to plan it out. So there is one thing that separates those who finish their novels from those who don't. And what that is having the proper expectations going into the process. So this isn't about becoming famous with your first novel. It's not about getting a bestseller. It's not about quitting your day job. It's about the reasons why you want to write and making sure that they are fundamentally sound. So let's look at expectations going in. And why is this important? Why do we have to even consider what our expectations might be? Well, I'll tell you. It's because writing a novel is really hard. And if you're not prepared for that, you're far more likely to stall and quit and give up and, all of those things. And then, of course, the negative self-talk starts again, right? Like, oh, what made you think that you could be a writer, and so on and so forth. But if you know the difficulty of what's coming, if you know what those challenges are, you can mentally prepare to get past them when they arrive, and they will. So if anyone tells you that writing a novel is easy and that you can do it in 30 days and so on and so forth, no, it's not easy. It requires a lot of work. It requires self-discipline, and it requires expectations that to create something that's really good requires a lot of effort. So with that in mind, let's look at, I've got 5 major expectations that you should have as you begin to go down this path of writing your own novel. So I've got 5 of them. I'm sure there's a gazillion, but let's just look at 5. The first is, expect this to be hard. Anyone who tells you that writing a novel is easy is either trying to sell you something, or has never written a novel, or perhaps writes really bad novels, okay? They are hard to write. They require a lot of effort, a lot of thinking, a lot of learning, and it's not an easy thing to do. It is a lot of fun, let me tell you. It's more fun than I ever thought I would have writing, but it's not easy to do. So, and then, that's just your first novel. Writing a really good novel is even harder. So these things take time, and we need to learn the skills and learn the processes. There aren't any shortcuts, right? So to overcome this, you're going to need to work hard. You'll have to put in the time and effort. And although it should be obvious, right? But there are a lot of aspiring writers who seem to think, maybe if only subconsciously, that there's some trick to making a novel writing experience easier. Some trick, some hack, some 7 simple steps for writing a bestseller. Like, okay, there isn't. There's none of that stuff. There are no secrets. There are no hacks that are going to save you a ton of time and effort. That's not the way it works. If you want to write a good novel, then expect that it's going to require a lot of hard work from you. You are the only one who can do this. You won't be able to write a novel by listening to podcasts or reading books or watching all of the YouTube videos. You actually have to sit down and do it. So that's expectation number 1. It's going to be hard. Number 2, expect your first novel to be only so-so. It's not going to be a bestseller. It may never see the light of day, like my first novel that ended up sitting on my hard drive, and I'm not even sure I have a copy of it anymore. It was that bad, and that's okay. That's okay. So go into this process not expecting your first novel to be a bestseller. We all have dreams. We all have aspirations. We'd all like to win the lottery, but that's not realistic. Your first novel is a training ground. This is something that you can do, and at the end of it, you may realize, you know what, novel writing isn't really for me. I really didn't enjoy this. On the other hand, you may really like it and want to do more, and that's the hope, is that by the time you've done one, by the time you've written 75,000 words, you'll have a pretty good idea of what it takes to create a really good novel. And there's a huge learning curve. So don't expect your first one to be a bestseller. Like, take that pressure off your shoulders. Have fun with it. This is a learning experience. The first time you tried to ride a bike, you fell off, right? And writing a novel is similar in the sense that you're not going to be an expert at it right away. So that's the second one. Now the third one, the third expectation, expect to be overwhelmed at times by the amount of material you need to learn in order to be a really effective storyteller. There is a lot. Okay, so I mentioned a few things before, right? Like coming up with a great story idea is not easy for a lot of people. But the more experience you have with it, the better you get at it, and the more interesting storylines you can develop. But that's just story ideas. And then there are characters and their motivations, and there are themes and plots and subplots and plot points and rising tension and conflict in your story. And, all of those, never mind the words themselves and how to string a good sentence together. There's so much to learn when you're writing a novel that it's easy to become overwhelmed by it all. So the way I teach novel writing is breaking things down one step at a time so that we can focus on certain things. And then as we get going, as you're writing your novel and you're getting 10, 20,000 words, 30,000 words into it, I keep introducing new things that you can then use as you move forward. Again, the first novel is for fun. It's for training. It's for learning. It's not to be writing a bestseller. Okay, so expectation number 4 is you can expect to encounter fears. Fears, my goodness. Okay, so we are quite often we are fear-driven creatures. We don't want to do stuff because we don't want to look stupid, or we do things because we want to get approval. We want to get liked, and and the risk of putting yourself out there just to be judged. Oh, that's a powerful fear, and those fears are going to come up all the time when you're writing, and this is normal and this is natural. Look, I've written, I'm on my seventh novel now, and I still get these fears coming up that this is, this story is awful and no one's going to read it, and it's not interesting enough, and so on and so forth. Then the self-talk, the negative self-talk starts again, right? Like, who do you think you are? You're not a writer, go back to your day job kind of stuff. And these are the fears and these are the voices that you're going to hear. So expect to encounter them. And when you do, just, give a little nod of your head. Okay, I knew this was coming. I knew my fears could get very powerful, but I'm not trying to write a bestseller. I'm just trying to write a story. It doesn't have to be good because this is how I'm learning. So there are ways of countering these fears and the negative self-talk when it starts coming up. But you can expect to encounter them, those fears. So that's number 4. And then number 5, you can expect to feel, and this is the good, like the first 4 are kind of like, Debbie Downer stuff, right? It's like, ugh. But the 5th one is actually a really positive one. You can expect to feel an amazing sense of achievement once you've finished your novel. Even just the first draft. You don't have to, even if you don't revise it and edit it, just the first draft. It's an amazing accomplishment. And when you think about how many people in this world claim to want to write a book, and how few actually do, it's remarkable. And then you will be among those who can say, yes, I've written a novel. And this is just the beginning, right? This is just the beginning. So, and I will tell you, at some point, you'll write a novel that you want to publish, and whether you try to get a press or publication house to pick you up, or whether you self-publish yourself, it doesn't matter. When you hold that book of yours in your own hands for the first time, oh my goodness, it's unbelievable. That feeling of accomplishment, that sense of achievement that you get is unbelievable. And it never, I'm telling you this, it never grows old, never, ever. It's just such an overwhelming feeling of achievement. It's just fantastic. So you can expect to feel that too. And as you're going along your journey of writing, and like we all do, we struggle with plot points and we struggle with characters and what happens next, and that sort of thing. Keep in mind that when this is done and you turn it into a book that you're going to hold in your own hands, it's that, for me, that keeps me going, because I know what it's like to do that, and it's so unbelievable. I can't find the words. Obviously, I can't find the words to describe it. It's like nothing I've ever felt before. So you can expect that too, that sense of achievement. And thinking back of all those English teachers and others who said that you'd never be able to do this, and it's a pipe dream, and had no faith in your ability to get one written, and here you are holding it in your hands. What a feeling that is. Okay, so those are just a handful of expectations that you should have when you go into the writing process. It's not about writing a bestseller. It's not about becoming famous or making tons of money, because frankly, very, very few writers actually make a living at their craft. So let's get rid of those things and just focus on what you can expect: hard work, lots of fear, lots of stuff to learn, and an overwhelming sense of achievement once you've actually finished your novel. That's great. Okay, so keep writing, and we'll talk to you next time. And if you would like a little bit of help with your own writing project, feel free to reach out. Contact me, David, at writeyourfirstnovelnow.com, and happy to sit down and look at all the programs and courses and materials that we offer. Happy to do that.